Can anybody really doubt that electricity and the electric grid is part of the foundation of who we are as a nation, and we need to invest in it if we want to make sure power keeps coming to our homes? There's an interesting poll that was done in February by Consumers Reports, and they found that 76% of Americans think that broadband is as important as electricity and water. I mean, how can we not agree that broadband is infrastructure? And yet, we have been disinvesting in infrastructure as a nation for decades, in infrastructure, in research and development, and in manufacturing. All of them we have been disinvesting in. Infrastructure, as you know, is now the smallest share of our economy since World War II. We are at a 72-year low with respect to manufacturing. Research and development has been dropping since the 1960s. China and our economic competitors are investing in research and development because they want to seize the future. They want to surpass the United States. And if we allow that to happen, we will be weaker as a nation and we will fall. And we cannot do that. And that's what this American Jobs Plan is all about. So we can't just sit around saying we need to do this. It's bipartisan. We know that Republicans and Democrats, it's a joke in Washington, Infrastructure Week, and Democrats and Republicans have been making that joke, but it's not a joke anymore. We need to get it done. And there is bipartisan support for these elements, these basic elements. So starting on Inauguration Day, just to say a word about what DOE, Department of Energy, has been doing, we've been rolling out efforts to research and development and deploy clean energy technologies with an eye toward creating jobs, and if the American Jobs Plan passes, this will be able to be put on steroids. So in the past 2 weeks, just as an example, we made two announcements on research, one on research and one on deployment of offshore wind. The research one was to cut the cost of solar by half yet again in the next 10 years, and on offshore wind, it was to add 30 gigawatts of offshore wind energy on the Atlantic seaboard, again within 10 years. Today, we are announcing another two funding opportunities for clean energy technology. One of them is to create next generation biofuels for airplanes and ships, which are very hard to electrify. And the second is to announce clean energy technology funding opportunity to reduce methane emissions from the coal, oil, and gas industry. And as many of you know, methane is an extremely potent and dangerous greenhouse gas. But these investments are really just a down payment on what we need to do as a nation, and the American Jobs Project will take us the rest of the way. And I want to emphasize because I've been meeting with so many stakeholders on this, the true importance of ensuring that 40% of the benefits of the American Jobs Plan go to communities that have been left behind or unseen, people who have been in the shadows of power plants and whose children have to gasp to breathe or use an inhaler. We need to remedy a moral wrong and make those investments, and the American Jobs Plan will allow us to do that. It's a once-in-a-century investment to seize a once-in-a-century opportunity. That's what the people elected Joe Biden to do, and we've waited far too long to do it, so we're going to get it done. We're going to put America to work, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Secretary. If I can shift gears a little bit, one of the things in the President's infrastructure package was investments in advanced nuclear development. One of the things I know you mentioned, you reiterated during your confirmation hearings, the President's opposition to funding for a nuclear fuel repository down the mountain. Where does the Biden administration plan to store the nation's spent radioactive nuclear fuel, and what's the ongoing process of that review?
Yeah, some of you may recall there was a bipartisan commission on what to do about spent nuclear fuel. There has to be a consent-based process to be able to do that. We are beginning that work inside of the Department of Energy. We have to find a solution, but it has to be based on community agreement.
Is there a timetable for that review when you?
We'll be making an announcement on that, not ready to say yet.
And then just changing gears again, the last administration invested heavily in the nation's nuclear triad, the development of new and improved nuclear weaponry. Is the policy of this administration that a lot of this development falls under your department to continue that R&D, that expensive R&D to modernize the nation's nuclear arsenal?
We have to modernize the nation's nuclear arsenal. We have to keep and maintain the stockpile to make sure that it is safe and effective, and we will continue to do that to ensure that we can deter nuclear aggression from other countries. So our nuclear deterrent is important, and it is embedded in the values of that stockpile, and we'll make sure that our people are safe.
Thank you so much. I've heard you talk about the corporate tax rate and what they want to do with this infrastructure bill. Can this infrastructure bill be successful with a 25% corporate tax rate?
As the president has said, this is a negotiation, and he really does want to hear from Democrats and Republicans about what would be acceptable to get this across the line. So there is room for negotiation. His point is that it has to be paid for. And so if it's not a 28%, what else is it? And we're very encouraged by those who have been bringing ideas forth, and we are hopeful that, especially when Congress gets back next week, that those discussions can begin in earnest.
All right. Thank you. You're one of the 5 cabinet secretaries that the president is tasked with engaging with Congress on this. You mentioned the president's willing to negotiate. He says he's open to alternative ways to pay for this if Republicans put forth any. In your conversations at all, have you heard any such alternatives from Republican members?
I have.
You'd like to share?